Good morning, students. Today we are going to start the muscles of the lower limb. Already I have completed the first one, that is the gluteal muscles, or it is also called as the buttock muscle. So today we are going to study about the lower limb muscles, in which the gluteal muscles we have studied already. The gluteal or the buttock muscles, which are present below the backbone, the buttock muscles, which are, I have already told, gluteus maximus, gluteus medius, gluteus minimus, gemellus superior and the gemellus inferior. These are the muscles. Now coming to the lower limb, we have 5 different parts in the lower limb, that is the gluteal part or the buttock region, thigh region, leg region, ankle region and the foot region. Thigh, leg, ankle and foot. So these are the 5 places where the muscles are situated, where the muscles are bound. So these muscles, they are called the muscles of the, collectively they are called muscles of the lower limb. The lower limb contains 5 parts: the gluteal part, thigh part, leg part, ankle and the foot. Coming to the muscles of the thigh, that is the second one. The first one yesterday I have explained. Now coming to the second one, that is the muscles of the thigh. There are 3 parts in the lower muscles of the thigh region. The thigh region contains 3 major muscles, 3 parts of the major muscles. The extensor or the anterior muscles, then adductor or medial muscles, then flexor or the posterior muscles. The extensor muscles include quadriceps femoris muscles. They are rectus femoris, vastus medialis, vastus lateralis, vastus intermedialis. Then sartorius. Second one is the sartorius. 2 major muscles are there. The femoris, quadriceps femoris, the first one muscle, wherein 4 muscles are there. Then sartorius. Then coming to the second one, the medial muscle or the adductor muscles. The adductor longus, adductor radius, adductor magnus, pectineus, gracilis, then obturator externus. So 6 muscles are there in the medial region. Coming to the posterior region, posterior muscles, they are called as flexor muscles. They are semi-tenderness, semi-membranous and biceps femoris. So biceps femoris. So these are the 3 parts of the muscles of thigh region. Coming to each one, the first one, extensor or anterior muscles, in which the quadriceps is very important. The quadriceps muscle is powerful extensor of knee joint region. Mandya bhagadalli there. Knee joint. It is the biggest muscle in the body, covering front side of the femur. It covers the front side of the femur. In which, coming to the first one, rectus femoris, the origin is from ilium of the pelvic girdle. Insertion, it is inserted into the tibial tuberosity of tibia bone. Tibial tuberosity of the tibia bone by a strong round tendon. Now coming to the action, extension of the knee, flexation of the hip joint. So it extends the knee region, then flexation of the hip joint. Now collectively the vestas are 3 vestas muscles are present: vastus medialis, vastus lateralis, vastus, intermedialis. These three muscles, they together originate from a single point. So hence they are joined together, the second, third and fourth. They all arise from the shaft of femur bone. From the shaft of femur bone, these three muscles, vastus muscles, they arise. Coming to the insertion, they insert into the tibial tuberosity of the tibia bone by a strong round tendon. The patella, largest sesamoid bone. The patella, largest sesamoid bone in the body, develops in this tendon. The distal tendon of patella is called ligamentum patella. Now coming to the action, it helps in the extension of the knee. The knee is extended or it is moved by the action of these three vastus muscles. Coming to the sertorius. The sertorius, it is the largest muscle in the body. It is long, narrow, ribbon-like muscle. It originates from the anterior superior iliac spine. Then insertion to the upper part of the medial surface of tibial shaft. Then coming to the action, adduction or the movement towards the midline of the body and lateral rotation of the thigh. Flexation, that is the bending of the limb or joint of knee joint. The flexation of the knee joint. So these are the actions of the serratus muscle. Coming to the anterior or the medial muscles. Anterior, sertorius muscle is over. Coming to the next one, adductors of the medial muscles. Adductor or medial muscles, the second one here. It is here adductor or medial muscles. They are 6 in number. The first one is adductor longus. Second is adductor radius. Third one is adductor Magnus, pectineus, gracilis, then obturator externus. These are the 6 muscles present in the medial region of the thigh. Coming to the first one, adductor longus. It is a triangular muscle forming the medial part of the floor of the femoral triangle. It forms the femoral triangle and it is a medial part of the floor and it is a triangular in its shape. Coming to the origin, it originates from inferior pubic ramus, the ischial ramus and ischial tuberosity. So from 3 portions it takes its origin, that is inferior pubic ramus, ischial ramus, then ischial tuberosity. Coming to the insertion, linear aspera of the femur bone. It inserts itself into the lineal aspera of femur and medial epicondyle of tibia bone. Medial epicondyle of tibia. Action, adduction. That is nothing but the movement towards the middle of the body. Movement towards the middle of the body is called adduction. Then flexation, bending of the limb or the joint. Bending of limb or joint is called flexation of hip region. Flexation and adduction is done by this muscle, adductor longus. Coming to the adductor radius, second one, it is a flat triangular muscle that is found in the inner side of the thigh runs from pubis to the medial aspect of the femoral bone. Then origination, anterior body of the pubis, inferior pubic ramus. It originates from anterior body of the pubis and inferior pubic ramus. Insertion is a lineal aspera of the femur. Lineal aspera of the femur bone. That is the portion in the femur bone. You can see in the bone. We have already completed the bones. So the femur bone, the structure of the femur bone shows there is a place called lineal aspera. Now coming to the action, adduction, that is the movement towards the middle line of the body of hip bone, hip region. Adduction of the hip region, that is nothing but the movement towards the middle line of the body of hip. Then adductor magnus, it is the largest muscle of the adductors, which is the triangular situated on the medial side of the thigh. It originates from the ischiopubic ramus and ischial tuberosity of the pelvic girdle. Insertion, lineal aspera and medial epicondyle of tibia. Coming to the action, adduction of the flexation, adduction and flexation of hip, medial rotation of hip. So hip bone movement is done by this muscle. Then pectineus, it has the most superior attachment of all the thigh adductors. It has the most superior attachment of all the thigh adductors. It takes its origin from the pubis of the pelvic girdle. Then insertion into the posterior surface of the femur and proximal part of the lineal aspera. Coming to the action, the adduction, flexation and the medial rotation of the thigh region. The thigh movement is controlled by this pectineus muscle. Then coming to the brachialis muscles, it extends from the coccygeal bone to the tibia. It extends from coccygeal bone, that is the coccyx bone, to the tibia bone. That it takes its origin from anterior body of the pubis, inferior pubic ramus and ischial ramus. It inserts medial surface of proximal tibia. Medial surface of the proximal tibia. Action is adduction and flexation of the thigh, flexation and medial rotation of the leg. Then coming to the obturator externus, that is the last one. It is a flat triangular muscle which covers the outer surface of the pelvis. Obturator externus, that is the sixth one. It is a flat triangular muscle which covers the outer surface of the pelvis. The pelvis is covered outerly by this muscle, that is the obturator externus muscle. Coming to the origin, it originates from obturator foramen and obturator membrane. Insertion, it inserts itself into the trochanteric fossa of the femur. Action is lateral rotation and adduction of the thigh. Flexors of the posterior muscles. The third, flexor or posterior muscles. They are 3 in number: semi-tenderness, semi-membranous and biceps femoris. Coming to the flexors, these muscles are called hamstrings because their tendons posterior to the knee are used to hang up in the butcher shop. So in the butcher shop, these tendons are hanged on the rings. So hence they are called as hamstrings. These are group of muscles found at upper part of the leg. They are used in walking, running and many other physical activities. They are 3 in number. I have already told: semi-tendinous, semi-membranous and biceps femoris. Now, coming to the semi-tendinous muscle. Semi-tendinous, it is called so because it has a long tendon of insertion upper halt at a muscle and lower half is a tendon. It is called as the semi-tendinous because it has a long tendon of insertion. Upper half is a muscle and the lower half is a tendon. This muscle is made up of 2 parts, muscle and the tendon. Half of the muscle is tendon and other half is the muscle. So it is called semi-tendinous. It lies superficially on the semi-membranous muscle in the posterior-medial aspect of the thigh region. It takes its origin from ischial tuberosity, insertion into the upper part of the medial surface of shaft of the tibial bone. Now coming to the action of this muscle, the flexation of the knee and the extension of the hip joint is by these semi-tendinous muscles. Coming to the semi-membranous, it is called as a semi-membranous because it has a flat tendon of origin. Upper half of the muscle is flat like a membrane and lower half of the muscle is thick. The upper half is like membrane. The muscle upper half of the muscle is membranous and the lower half is the thick muscle. So it is called as a semi-membranous. It lies in the posterior medial aspect of the thigh deep to the semi-tendinous muscle. It takes its origin from ischial tuberosity of the pelvic girdle. Then insertion into the posterior surface of the medial condyle of the tibial bone. Then action is, it helps in the flexation and rotation of the leg and serves as thigh extensor. Now coming to the biceps femoris, this is the last one, third one, biceps muscle. This muscle lies in the posterior lateral aspect of the thigh. It has 2 heads, long head and short head. The biceps muscle has 2 heads, long head and a short head. This muscle lies in the posterior lateral aspect of the thigh. Posterior lateral aspect of the thigh. It takes its origin. The long head arises from the ischial tuberosity. The short head arises from the lineal aspera of the lateral supracondylar line. Coming to the insertion into the head of the fibula bone. Head of the fibula bone. Then action, flexation and lateral rotation of the knee joint. Flexation and lateral rotation of the knee joint. Now coming to the muscles of the leg region. The names of the muscles are very important. I have already told you. Students, please go through the names of the muscles, their origin, their insertion and their action. These are very important. Now coming to the third one. Thigh is over. Leg region. Muscles of leg. There are 3 in number. The first one is anterior muscles. posterior muscles, perineal muscles, fibular perineal muscles or fibular muscles. The anterior muscles are 4 in number: tibialis anterior, tibialis anterior, then second extensor helicus, longus, then third one extensor digitorum, longus, then fourth one is peroneus tertius, Neus peroneus tertius. Coming to the posterior, they are divided into again 2. They are superficial and deep muscles. Superficial gastroceneus, number 2 soleus, 3 is plantaris, and deep muscles are fourth one. This is fourth actually. 3, 4 popliteus, then fifth is flexor helicus longus, sixth one is flexor digitorum longus, then seventh one tibialis posterior, Tibialis posterior. Then coming to the peroneal or fibular muscles, there are only two muscles are there. One peroneus longus, second one is peroneus brevis. So these are the leg muscles: anterior, posterior and perineal. Three portions are there in the leg region. So the leg region contains three portions, that is, the first one is the anterior, second is the posterior, and the third one is the perineal. The anterior muscles are tibialis anterior, extensor hallucis longus, extensor digitorium longus, then peroneus tertius. Coming to the posterior muscles, there are two places, that is the superficial and the deep muscles are there, two types of muscles: gastroceneus, then soleaceus, then plantaris are the superficial muscles. Deep muscles are popliteus muscle, flexor hallucis longus, then flexor digitorium longus, then tibialis posterior. So these are the total 7 muscles present in the posterior portion. Coming to the perineal or the fibular portion, there are only two muscles: peroneus longus, peroneus brevis. So these are the leg muscles. Coming to the anterior muscles, the layer of dense connective tissue surrounding the groups of the muscles in the leg region divides it into 3 compartments, that is anterior, posterior and lateral or perineal region, which are attached to the anterior posterior borders of the fibula bone. All the muscles of the anterior compartment are dorsiflexors of the foot, that is the movement of foot upwards. Upward movement of the foot is done by the anterior muscles. Paralysis of these muscles results in foot drop. This is due to the loss of the power of dorsiflexation. When it losses, then the foot drop comes, that is nothing but the paralysis of these muscles. Coming to the tibialis anterior, the first one, tibialis anterior, it is a spindle-shaped muscle. Origin: upper 2/3 of the lateral surface of the shaft of tibia and the interosseous membrane of tibia. Upper 2/3 part of the shaft of tibia and interosseous membrane of tibia. That is its origin. Coming to the insertion, the tendon of the muscle is inserted into the base of the first metatarsal and cuneiform tarsal bone. The cuneiform tarsal bone and the first metatarsal bone, they receive this tibialis muscle. Coming to the action, it dorsiflexes, that is the movement of foot upwards, called as dorsiflexation. Dorsiflexation is nothing but the movement of the foot upwards, upward movement of the foot at ankle joint. At the ankle joint, when the upward movement of the foot takes place, then this muscle takes its action. It acts as a inverter of the foot at the talus and the mid-dorsal joints. It also maintains the medial longitudinal arch of the foot. Extensor hallucis longus, medial surface of the shaft of the fibula. It takes its origin from the medial surface of the shaft of fibula. Extensor hallucis longus. Inserted into the base of the internal phalanx of the big toe. The big toe phalanx gives the insertion for this muscle. Coming to the action, dorsiflexation of the foot at the ankle, dorsiflexation of the big toe also. The first one is the big toe. Extensor Digitorium longus originates upper 3/4 of the medial surface of the shaft of fibula, interosseous membrane, lateral tibial condyle. From three portions it takes its origin. Coming to the insertion, on the dorsum of the foot, the tendons of this muscle split into 4 digital slips for insertion into the lateral 4 toes. So in the lateral 4 toes, it inserts itself. Coming to the action, dorsiflexation of the foot at the ankle joint, dorsiflexation of the lateral 4 toes. Peroneus territorius, the 4th one. It may be considered as the 5th tendon of the extensor digiti longus muscle. It takes its origin from lower 1/4 of the medial surface of the shaft of the fibula. Insertion is into the base of 5th metatarsal bone. Action is dorsiflexation of the ankle joint. Weak everter, that is outward movement. Everter means outer movement. Weak everter, it is a weak of the foot. Posterior muscles. In the posterior, 3 muscles are superficial. The first 3 muscles are superficial. Gastroceneus. It is a large, powerful muscle. It lies superficial to the soleus muscle. It has 2 heads, medial and lateral, together with head of soleus, known as triceps suri. Triceps suri. Then coming to the origin, medial head, medial condyle of the femur, lateral head, that is the lateral condyle of the femur. Insertion, the tendons of both gastroceneus and soleus fuse together and insert in the calcaneus tarsal. Calcaneus tarsal is the insertion point. Coming to the action, they produce plantar flexation of the ankle joint. Then coming to the soleus, the muscle lies deep to the gastroceneus muscle. Gastroceneus muscle. Deep into the first muscle. Coming to the origin, it has a horseshoe shaped origin from posterior surface of head and upper part of the shaft of the fibula. Insertion, the tendons of this muscle fuse with the tendons of the gastrocneus muscle to tendocalcaneus and inserted into the calcaneus tarsal. Coming to the action, they produce plantar flexation, that is the movement of the top of the foot toes away from the leg of ankle joint. Plantaris, the last one, third one. It is a small muscle with a long, slender tendon. It lies between gastrocneus and soleus muscle. So this is a plantaris muscle. Plantaris muscle, which is a long slender tendon, takes origin from the lateral surface of lateral supracondylar region of the femur. Insertion: the slender belly of the muscle is inserted in the calcaneus tarsal. Action: it is a vestigial muscle in man. No function. The function is not found. It is a vestigial muscle. Sometimes it is absent. Sometimes it is absent. Coming to the deep muscles, popliteus. It is a flat triangular muscle which forms the floor of the popliteal fossa. It is also called as the knee pit. The popliteal fossa is called knee pit, located at the back of the knee joint, which is dome shaped, forms the main pathway by which vessels and the nerves pass between thigh and the leg. Between the thigh and the leg, the vessels and the nerves pass through by this popliteal fossae. It originates in the tendons and the insertion is fleshy origin. It originates from intracapsular region of popliteal groove on the lateral surface of lateral condyle of femur. Insertion: it is inserted into posterior surface of the tibia. Now coming to the action, it initiates flexation of the knee joint and prevents from trapping between the condyles of tibia and femur during flexation. So it helps the condyles of the tibia and the femur bones in the movement. Flexor Helix Longus. Fifth one, Flexor Helix Longus. From posterior surface of the shaft of the tibia and the interosseous membrane. Origination. It originates from the posterior surface of the shaft of fibula and interosseous membrane of the fibula. Coming to the insertion, its tendons groove the talus and the calcaneus tarsals and inserted into the base of the great toe. Action: it helps in the plantar flexation of the big toe, that is the great toe. Nothing but it is the movement of the great toe upwards away from the leg. Second one, it helps in the plantar flexation of the ankle joint. The third one, it maintains longitudinal arch of the foot. Coming to the Flexor Digitorium Longus, it takes its origin from the posterior surface of the tibia. Insertion: the muscles ends in the tendon which divides into 4 slips and attaches to the plantar surface of the distal phalanx of the 4 digits. Action: it plantar flexes the lateral 4 toes and the ankle joint. It helps in maintaining medial longitudinal arch of the foot. Tibialis posterior. The last one, tibialis posterior. It is the deepest muscle of the posterior compartment. Origin from the posterior surface of the tibia and the fibula bone and the interosseous membrane. Coming to the insertion, mainly into the tuberosity of navicular bone. Its tendon slips groove the tarsal bones except talus and 2nd, 3rd, 4th metatarsal bones. Action is: it is a powerful plantar flexor in foot. It is an inverter of the foot. The 2 muscles which insert to close and has almost the same line of action Example, tibialis, anterior and the posterior. The third action is it helps to maintain the longitudinal and transverse arch of the foot. Now coming to the perineal or fibular muscles. Perineal or fibular muscles. Muscles of the lateral compartment. The last one, perineal or the fibular. Only two are there, peroneus longus and peroneus brevis. Peroneus longus, they are everters of the foot, movement of the sole upward. They help to maintain the stability of the joint ankle. Origination, foot, they originate from the lateral surface of the shaft of the fibula. Insertion, the long tendons of this muscle lies superficial to the tendon of peroneus brevis and passes deep to the downward across the plantar surface of the cuboid tarsal and finally inserted into the base of first metatarsal bone and adjacent medial cuneiform tarsal. Coming to the action, eversion of the foot maintains the lateral, longitudinal and transverse arch of the foot. Second one is peroneus brevis. Second, the peroneus brevis or fibularis brevis. Origin is from lower surface of the shaft of the fibula. Insertion, the tendons of the muscles grew to the posterior surface and pass deep and inserted into the base of the cuneiform, that is the fifth tarsal bone. Action is, it is an everter of the foot. It maintains the lateral longitudinal arch of the foot. So these are the muscles of the leg region. Tomorrow we will study about the ankle and the foot region. The muscles of the ankle and the foot, they are also they have different numbers also. They are also more. Hence, you have to study all the muscles of the ankle and the foot. So, thank you very much.